This is Vlog, themed exploring WSU's research niche areas with leading researchers. Join us for a series of vlogs that will see Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor Rushila Nolundi Songa, engaging with various academics and researchers.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm having a conversation with my colleague, Professor Nkeh, and we're going to talk about her research niche area. Prof. Nkeh, before we start, can you kindly introduce yourself, your research niche area, and colleagues in your team?
Thank you very much, VC. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon or good day. I am Professor Benedicta Nkeh Chungag. I am the chairperson of the Cardio-Metabolic Research Niche Area in Walter Sisulu University. And my team is made up of colleagues from clinical departments, such as obstetrics and gynecology, where we have Dr. Businge and Dr. Gubu Ntaba. And then the Department of Surgery, where we have Dr. Mtimba. The Department of Neonatology and Pediatrics, where we have Dr. Sotobe Bana. And then we have from the Department of Physiology, which is a basic science department, we have Dr. Ntai. And then we have other colleagues from East London who are not in the medical school or part of the university, who have requested to be part. They are part, but not officially part of the team. So I would not name those for now. We have the physiology team in the university who are also part of it. We have a postdoctoral fellow who is Dr. Ndlovu. We have students, PhD student, Ms. Majuda. She's completing her project this year. And then we have master's degree students, Kuma Mabutu and Mr. Aka Ebenezer. For now, those are the students, but we have several medical students, MMed students who would be joining the team shortly. I would like to say, VC, our team is still very young because remember, we just started off a few months ago. But it's a team that has potential to grow because it cuts across medical, clinical departments, as well as basic science departments. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you very much, Prof. Now, in simple terms, most of us are not scientists in that or familiar with your discipline, for that matter. So, what is the goal of the Cardio-Metabolic Research Niche Area, and what's the research on? What are the problems that you're grappling with and trying to solve?
Cardiometabolic diseases are those diseases which affect the cardiovascular system, which includes the heart and the blood vessels, and more so the management of glucose in the body. Examples of cardiometabolic diseases would be hypertension, stroke, insulin resistance, diabetes, and all those diseases that will come as a result of poor management of glucose in the body and which are dependent on how fat or how slim a person is, how active they are, and generally whether they smoke or they don't smoke, they drink alcohol, they take too much of it, lifestyle. So cardiac metabolic diseases, in essence, are those diseases which are affected or which are dependent on how a person lives. They are also described as modifiable. They are diseases that can be changed or can be treated by a change in lifestyle. For example, it is expected that if somebody has insulin resistance and they are obese, if they lose weight, the insulin resistance should at least resolve itself. And we also know that heart diseases, cardiovascular diseases, insulin they are all dependent on a certain amount of lifestyle adjustment. So in essence, that is what we would use as our definition of cardiometabolic diseases.
I like the last point that you made, but I also have other questions from what you just said. But the last point that you made it just occurred to me to ask whether there are any African medicinal plants that you are using in your research niche areas, and also whether there are any members of the community. I know your niche area is still young, but do you already have community members that you are working with to access those medicinal plants in those different communities?
Yes, VC, as part of our research niche area, we will be looking at medicinal plants. Before the niche area was formed, we carried out research on some plants which are used in the Eastern Cape to manage hypertension. And that gave us the opportunity to work with the communities around Lusikisiki, especially in a small village known as Nzizangwa, where we worked with one knowledge holder, indigenous knowledge holder, Mr. Matlakata, and we tested the plants that he uses for treating his patients for hypertension, and there was potential. So we have just had a number of delays in trying to develop some of those plants into medicinal devices which can be used for at least preventing or treating borderline hypertension.
All right. Now that we have, I know that you are very good in accessing funding. Do you have any plans of continuing doing so that you can build on the work that you are doing, especially working in collaboration with those communities? Because I think that is it's a very important and strategic avenue that you can use to have impact.
Yes, VC, you are right that we could have a lot more impacts working with those communities and developing their plans. Being a young group, we really haven't delved into all this. But in my own personal research, it's something that we had thought about, but many other responsibilities came along the way, and we kind of let it lie down a bit. But VC, we have a plan. I'm sorry. We have a project that is funded by TIA, which was to help us move these plants from just being medicinal plants that we have studied to at least validating or kind of fine-tuning our results and seeing what mixtures work best in order to develop that as a tea for starters to put on the market. Because we are thinking we consume all sorts of teas that come from around the world, and yet we have our own medicinal plants which we could enhance and also put out there in the community. It will be more affordable, and it will also address the problems in our community, and more importantly, it will be able to generate income for our people.
Do you, as the chairperson of the niche area, do you have any plans of attracting young emerging researchers into your niche?
Yes, Prof. It is very important for us to attract young people, because if we look at academia, the population is becoming geriatric. They are aging. And for continuity, it's important that we get young people who can take over. You will be pleased to know that we have a very young lecturer in the Department of Human Biology, Dr. Ntai. We just call him Dr. Ram because it's Ramo something. So we just call him Dr. Ram for short.
Right.
He just obtained his PhD last year, and he obtained his PhD in a very important area that we are moving into, which is just looking into your eye, VC, with a camera, making a snapshot, and then from there, interpreting how the blood vessels, their anatomy, and saying whether you have an increased risk for cardiovascular diseases or not. We have the technology, and he is one of those that we have included in the team, or who has really requested to be part of the team because he did his PhD in that. So he is one of those that we will be grooming. And then Miss Majuda she's my pride, Miss Majuda. She came to us as a master's degree student, and she's now rounding off her PhD. Visi, that student has published 9 articles.
Wow.
And she has a citation of about 60.
That's good.
Yes, so she is one of those that we are grooming. She understands what we are doing. She operates all the equipment we have. And so we are hoping that she might be able to get a job so that she can stay on and not move. So these are the 2 young people that we are grooming, but there are others from the master's crop who are also coming up.
Okay. What are your plans? And I'm referring to yourself and the group. What are your plans in terms of trying to sustain this niche area, given the importance of the work that he's doing?
For now, we received seed grants from Walter Sisulu University, and we have a project that we will be starting soon. What has just delayed is the authorization from the hospital. We have obtained all the other clearances. The project should be starting by the end of the month. And then we are currently working on a proposal which will be sent out for funding, because we know that we cannot depend on the university alone for funding to sustain the niche area. And so we have a few calls that we are looking at which are interesting, and we hope that we would be able to put in an application or several applications for the different calls and hopefully get funded, and then that would help us to sustain the niche area without necessarily reverting to the university for assistance all the time.
And your long-term goals, over and above what you have just said, where do you see this project in the next, let's say, 10 years?
In the next 10 years, I foresee a situation where, let me digress a bit, Visi.
Yes, please.
Having worked with children, investigating the cardio-metabolic diseases in children, and we realize that in children as young as 6, they already have sufficient risk factors to push them into disease. We have children who are classified as hypertensive when we look at their blood pressure. And then when we also look at how the kidneys function, we already start seeing signs of impairment. So we then thought, but why don't we develop a way of separating children who are really hypertensive from non-hypertensive using criteria determined in our own population? So in this regard, my brainchild was to found a consortium which would look at childhood hypertension and look at the risk in African population. I also want to announce to you, Prof, that we founded that organization, and it is being, the president is Professor Ruan Kruger of the University of the Northwest, and I am the deputy president. So our objective is to, once more, I permit the terminology, decolonize health measurements. We want to determine the cutoff values at which you can say a child is hypertensive using our own population. Because currently you have that information out there, but it was determined in a Caucasian population, and that does not necessarily apply to us. Because last year we published an article where we started questioning the BMI cutoffs in children, and from our studies, it is beginning to emerge that the cutoff point, which is used as a reference for children, may not necessarily apply to children of African ancestry. So to go back to the question, we would like to get health measurements in our own population, which would address issues of cutoffs, which would be able to say, okay, if you see a patient who has 1, 2, 3, 4 risk factor, this is what it means in this population. So that is where we are hoping to go to. And secondly, we are hoping that in about 10 years, the references which are used would be determined from our own population. And then there will be literature out there on African populations that anybody can refer to and be able to make an informed decision. Therapy would also be dependent on what we have produced as results, not depending on external results. So we hope that we will be able to have this niche area grow into a center of excellence for cardiometabolic research, where we have the human studies going on, the medicinal plants research going, and also the psychosocial aspect of it, because you would know that when you're worried, everything falls out of place, because the hormones, the fight or flight hormones, are also responsible for raising blood pressure. They can contribute to raising blood pressure, and that also affects the cardiometabolic system. So we are looking forward, VC, for WSU to host that kind of center of excellence, which will have an impact nationally and globally.
Well, that is fantastic. Professor Nkeh, as we wrap up, people who are interested, either from communities or at WSU, to be part of the niche area, what is it that they need to do?
Prof, we are very open to receive anybody who is interested. And in fact, we encourage people to come and be a part of the niche area, because we think that each person has some wealth of knowledge and experience which would always benefit the niche area. So if anybody wants to be interested, like Dr. Ram, all he did was to walk to my office and say, I hear you're doing this, and I would like to be a part of it. And we said, you're welcome. So anybody who can reach out to us, we're hoping, VC, that in the near future we would have a website.
I was about to ask you that for those viewers who are watching and thinking, oh, this is interesting work, I really would love to be part of that niche area. How do they get in touch with you?
Yes, so we would like to, they can contact me by email. The email address is bnkhechungag@wsu.ac.za. Kind of longish, but that is the niche area, and you can contact us telephonically on 047 502 2454. If you send a message, we will respond and invite you, and you can then tell us what you'll be interested in and how you can become part of it. And we would be very welcoming to funders. So any funders who are listening to us, you are most welcome. We would like to test equipment. Permit me, VC, to go on. I know you were saying that the last question, but we would always see equipment like when we are buying blood pressure machines, they say has been validated in this population. There's nothing that has been validated in Africans. So we would also like the manufacturers of equipment, whether it's ambulatory blood pressure machines or it's just normal blood pressure machines, any machine that can be used in cardiometabolic research, to approach us so that we can also validate their equipment in an African population. So you would be most welcome. Thank you, VC.
Thank you very much, Professor Nkeh, for engaging us on this important work that you are doing. To the viewers out there, thank you very much. Until next time, it's a wrap.